All right, we are here, episode 150. That's a cheers, because 100,
Heyo.
150 times we've been on here together. I can't believe that it's been to that. Um, we are missing a couple of guys today. Josh is out there putting some work in on the football field. Chad sounds like he was putting some work in over the weekend, so he decided to sit on the DL tonight. So he'll be answering your Instagram and Facebook and whatever other questions you got kicking around here. But uh, how's the week been? How have things been going? I know we've been up to a lot of shit, but how are things going? Are you finding some free time for yourself?
Oh, I found some free time, Shane. Yeah, I got the chance to golf a few times this past few weeks. Pretty much every Sunday for the last 3 weeks, and then this past weekend I played a tournament on Saturday and played another 18 on Sunday.
Oh, just lovely.
Yeah, the game isn't it isn't going as well as I thought it would be. It seems to be getting progressively worse, but that's just what golf is, right? Inside your head. So I'm gonna take a hiatus here, and we'll get back to it in a little bit. How you been though?
Oh,
Summer's here. This is
yeah.
like your jive, right? Like I know you. This is your baseball season. Like you're telling me that your family's all into baseball too. You gotta be happy as a pig
Uh,
in shit.
yeah, I mean, I got to watch the girls play on the same team. Mackenzie's playing up a couple levels because
Whoa!
Michelle's coaching and they wanted to play in the same team. So that was cool. Um, Obviously, during this time of the year is OTA time too. So
Yeah.
we're paying a little bit of attention to what's going on with the squads. Steelers brought in Marcus Golden. I mean, third edge rusher, awesome. But there's been bigger news. There's been lots of things going on. And look, this summer is going to be probably the biggest summer for going for two, but it's also a big summer for the NFL.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a lot of guys that need to get paid still. There is some pending free agents that need to get out there and do what they need to do. Um, and just random stories that keep popping up. I mean, you were telling me about this Colts thing, and I think we should probably just jump right into it because
So you know
as
I love to shit on the Colts, right?
and as a couple of guys that are always repping out here for Betstamp, it
Yeah.
seems like one of the Colts players was paying attention and went on that app and found a way to leverage it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know a little bit more about the story, so I'm going to let you take it away here.
Yeah, well, the player's name just got dropped about 25 minutes ago. So it's Isaiah Rogers, their kick returner, punt returner. Like nothing crazy special. I say that as a Titans fan who's been chasing a punt returner slash kick returner for about 8 years now.
Yeah,
So they aren't always easy to find. But not a household name for a lot of people, but most fans would know him. That's kind of how he was described when this whole thing leaked this morning. And then, like I said, 20 minutes ago, it came out as being that. Apparently, it's like hundreds of bets, hundreds of wagers that he placed, not only just on other teams in the NFL, other sports, but on the Colts too. So he was betting
right.
on his own squad. Who knows if it was for or against, or if it was props, which is not good, right? But I mean, it's pretty like how many players are we going to see get busted this way? We got a Calvin Ridley
Yeah,
who made like one off bet or a few off bets when he was not even playing. But then at the same time, we've talked about this too.
yeah,
Like they smash betting into your face every third commercial, right?
yeah,
Is it the players' fault they want to get in on it too a little bit? Like I feel well, maybe because I'm starting to bet now and I'm
yeah.
enjoying it. I feel like I get it. Like, come, go bet against games you're not involved in. Like, what's the point? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, don't be betting on your own squad's game. That's a little bit weird, right?
Yeah, you can't be betting when you have some inside track, and like the inside track part is kind of when betting started to become more legal and more mainstream. This is kind of what I thought was going to happen was people there was going to be more of these fixes coming in and a little bit more dirty money floating around, but so far that hasn't been the case,
No,
and it just happens to be that a few guys can't control themselves, and I mean whether they want to call it an addiction or they want to call it just they can't help themselves. I mean if you look at a guy like John Morant in the NBA, I mean, he's got everything going for him and just can't get out of his own way. And some of these guys just can't get out of their own way.
and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But yeah, I mean, it's again, they're talking about millions of dollars. I mean, your punt returner, kick returner, your opportunity to make money is probably very limited in the NFL. Get your contract money while you can. But like, of course, it's the Colts. I'm just going to take the extra opportunity to say,
Yeah.
fucking suck, guys.
And like it's so easy for the NFL to find out that you're doing this. I mean,
Well, that's so. One of the agents, like, right after the player was named, one of the agents was actually asked, secret sources or whatever, have you heard about this? And he said, I've definitely heard about players making $3 to $5 bets here and there on other sports, for example, in the locker room, and they've come up to their agent, who's like their lawyer, and kind of said,
yeah.
like, I've done this. Like, what do I do? And he's basically said, don't ask, don't tell. But if they do, ask you, then I mean, they've obviously got something on
Right.
you. You got to give it up, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of crazy to think that in this day and age, like they still don't realize that it's going to be that easy to figure it out. Just like most people might not know it's that easy to figure out how to find the absolute best value it is for betting. But if you head over to our friends over at Betstamp, download the app. It's completely free. You can use it for free. Obviously, you want to use that referral code GF2. That gets the boys a little bit of an interaction, but
And,
uh,
I got no weird stuff about
yeah,
time. Like I have no time, and I'm able to go on there, grab up a prop bet that I'm looking for. NBA Finals are on right now, so I'm all over the Jamal Murray props, right? So I'm quickly running home from the golf course and figuring out what I want to do, and Finals going to pay me the quickest or the most amount for doing it.
yeah.
I'm all about that.
Yeah, and you know what? Like if we're looking at tonight's matchups, and we might get into a little bit of hockey later on in the show, but right now I'm looking at over 6 goals. I checked the Betstamp app just before we went on. MGM is playing even money, so
Okay.
even money over 6 goals. I don't know how Florida's going to hold up against this Vegas pressure that they were facing. They looked a little bit off kilter. Like I said, we might get into that a little bit further. Um, I think our flag's about to fall here. Uh, what are you going to do when you're live, right? That's what happens when we got Handyman Chad out here doing what he needs to do. Oh, there it goes.
All right.
So, yeah, so that fell. Um, anyway, going right back into it, as we look at some of these monster contracts, right? Like, there's huge money in betting, so why don't we just transfer right into money? Uh, Joe Burrow is the first one that comes to mind, right?
Mhm.
I mean, he's in training camp right now. He's not one of these holdout guys. There's a couple receivers that it seems like might be holding out or might be working on new deals. But um, what does a Joe Burrow structured deal look like? And is there ever going to be this rumor where the quarterback is actually going to just count for a percentage of the salary cap, and that's going to be the way that they structure these new deals?
Well, I mean, it almost seems like they kind of done that with Patrick Mahomes' deal, right? Like it really
Right.
was as close to that as they're going to get as far as the numbers on the paper. Joe Burrow, what is he worth? I put him up there. He's got to be worth more than Lamar Jackson to me. So you take what Lamar gets and you put a few more dollars in there, and I think that that's an option for him.
Right.
That is a realistic goal. I don't think that he's got the guaranteed money that something like Patrick Mahomes is going to give you. Let's remember, like I understand that the guy's played well. He's still playing on bummed knees. Like
Yeah.
any given moment, this could happen again. And we're talking about a different scenario where they're playing a guy or paying a guy for 4 more years who can barely even walk, right?
Right. Right.
You
Exactly.
got to be a little, and we just talked. Well, it's the same thing with Lamar Jackson. I mean, they're taking risks signing him to that money too. We talked about that as well. I just don't think I've ever heard that conversation about Burrow, but we're talking about just as injured as it is Lamar. Freak injuries, kind of, but it is what it is. I don't know. Like, and the Bengals have obviously got to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think he signs for?
I mean, right now it seems like the market's right around 50. But I think he's going to be above the market because Cincinnati can't afford to be in a position that they lose a quarterback.
So that's what I wanted you. I wanted you to say the word afford because when you brought up the percentage earlier, I think if there's going to be a team that makes it happen in the NFL, talking about the percentage numbers, it's going to have to be a team like Cincinnati that has to budget just about everything they do. Like I don't
Right.
care how much jive they've got now and how much fun they're having with Joe Burrow there and Chase being there. They're still not making that much money compared to the rest of the NFL, right? So
Yeah. I mean, they're the Oakland A's of the NFL right now.
yeah, I mean that's a really good comparison. It's a team that's only really got fans in the last 3 years. The ones that were before that are now in seniors' homes and aren't even paying for their cable anymore. So
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I know maybe two Bengals fans offhand that weren't Bengals fans, like pre Joe Burrow Bengals fans, like
yeah,
Bengals fans back when like Timo Van Olhoffen ruined their dreams back in '05.
it's. I don't think I know Bengals fans. I know Bengals player fans, like
Yeah,
people
yeah,
who like Ocho Cinco, people who like Corey Dillon, right? Like
yeah,
that type
yeah,
of stuff, right? But I know Keyshawn Johnson. I mean, the guy says some of the stupidest things ever. I know he came out and said that Joe Burrow is no better than Dak Prescott. And like I think that this is a stupid comment. Like Dak
yeah,
Prescott's making a ridiculous amount of money too, so it's not contract wise would be too bad. But I've been pretty adamant that I think Dak Prescott is nothing but a Ryan Tannehill 2.0. I've said this multiple times, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'll be the first to admit that Joe Burrow is a hell of a lot better than both of those players for sure.
Yeah, I mean the Prescott Tannehill thing, like I can see it because right now they're the same guy. I think Prescott was a better quarterback right away than Tannehill was. Tannehill took a little bit of time, but that's also the system and the players you have around you. I mean, when he was in Miami, he was a playoff quarterback. So I mean, I don't know. His best years seem to be behind him.
You know,
Yeah. And I don't know what this season holds for Tennessee. You know, last year I was kind of holding on a little bit of hope, and I actually had a props bet last year for Tannehill as a dark horse to win the MVP. As you
Are
can,
you still throwing $5 in that this year or
well,
what?
look, I'm not even sure you could find a market for it. It's
Well, I mean, that could lead us into the next conversation. Then is the Hopkins trade, right? What if
yeah,
Hopkins were to land in Tennessee? What would
well,
that? Because I know that that hasn't been a team that's been mentioned at all about it, but because of their connection to Mike Vrabel being from Houston, right? And there's a possibility that's there. We're obviously wide receiver needy,
yeah.
and the fact that he's come out and said I'll play for anybody. It's not just the fact that I said I want to play for a top tier quarterback a month ago, right? But what besides Tennessee, of course, where's an option if this guy lands, and what are your thoughts? Is it Pittsburgh Steeler?
No,
I know it just sounds silly to say, but like, holy shit, that could happen.
it's so loaded at receiver right now that they have the cap. So could I
Stop
see?
the cat.
Yeah, I mean, for $15 million a year, I mean, I don't pay the salary, so I mean, do your thing. But like, I don't see that happening. He kind of wants the Odell Beckham deal, the 1 year, prove it. And I don't think he. I mean, I think that's kind of a slap in the face to him, right? I mean, if if you don't really need the money at this point in time, you should just go and win yourself a ship and then head on back to Houston. Because I think next year Houston's probably going to be in a really good spot, right? I mean, go
Uh,
ahead and jump on them right now or jump on Kansas City or Buffalo right now, who both seem to be out on him. I mean, reports be what they are, but
yeah.
um, I instantly thought Buffalo. Maybe he doesn't hold up in that kind of cold weather, but you put him and Diggs with some of those slot guys and the pair of tight ends they got there, and maybe even maybe even bring Dalvin Cook on down. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean Buffalo, Kansas City makes sense. Miami makes a lot of sense. Um,
Here's the thing: but Hawkins has never been a speed receiver. The guy's gonna
yep,
get paid 15 million alone for the fact that he has a push-off artist and knows how to get away with it, right? Like
yep,
he's never blown by corners or anything like that. He's a fantastic route receiver, catches everything that's thrown his way, and again, he gets people out of his way in order to get to the ball.
yep.
So I am surprised at 15 million. If somebody like OBJ coming off of injury plagued seasons was able to score that, I'm just really surprised that DeAndre wasn't. Now, coming like the Ravens, how much are they going? Why didn't this happen a month ago, right, or a month and
Yeah,
a half ago? Because
There's
for
remorse
this,
has to set in.
100%. Like if you're looking at two of those players, and who you're going to give 15 million bucks to, obviously you're going to throw that Hopkins way, and you're probably going to throw him a multi-year deal. It's not a 1 year prove it like
Yeah,
OBJ got, right?
yeah. And like as far as the dark horse goes, and I don't know if there's a market for this, but maybe Chad or Liam can look it up while we're doing this. Um, what are the odds that DeAndre Hopkins goes to the Falcons?
Okay,
Like they need a receiver.
yeah.
They would pair him up with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. They add a little bit of a veteran piece for a Desmond Ritter. Um, I don't think Ritter's a bad quarterback. I mean, I don't think he's a great quarterback, but I could picture Hopkins in that division, whether he goes to Atlanta or New Orleans. I mean, maybe even Carolina. If you want to get down that, there's no way that any of them are going to Tampa. I can tell you that much. I was watching the
Fox Sports doesn't even have them on there. Fox Sports is saying Bills at plus 300 all the way to 49ers at plus 2,500.
All right, so we're off the board betting. We need to find a market for this. Let's hit up the boys. Let's see if Patty and Jake can find us an odd for this. I mean, we can't bet on their site, but those guys would at least know where it is.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, you'd have to assume that we're looking at like north of like plus 4,000 or something like that. I think that would be a nice landing spot. Um, I don't know. Is there anybody like the AFC South? I could see Houston, I guess, but Tennessee going to spend 15-16 million dollars on this guy?
Well, that's the thing. Like we have, I don't even know. Like I really don't know what to expect of this season. We haven't cut anybody except the fat or expiring contracts. Everybody talks about it as being a rebuild, but these guys are players that really haven't played and
Mm.
got cut off the team in the first place. And then the draft wasn't that bad. It seems like he'd have to buy in. Like he'd have to be a 2 year player because I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Yeah, and
I look at a team honestly. I look at a team like Seattle. It's a team that they have they've had possession receivers for the last decade, 15 years, even maybe being there. And now you've got a burner in DK Metcalf that is still just a three route wide receiver.
yeah.
And then you can have your underneath runner in DeAndre Hopkins that can get your short yardage if need be with Gino, who was an MVP caliber or comeback player of the year last year, right? So
What receiver did they grab this year though? I'm not saying it discounts them, but they also grabbed somebody else in the draft.
I don't remember.
Chad, help me out.
Seattle, who they draft wide receiver.
I just remember it being a threat, but yeah, like that makes sense. Like, and
And it's in division. It's somebody that he can kind of stick back to the Cardinals a little bit, and they know him. Like I mean, teams in division know they scout the players on opposing teams, so
yeah,
they kind of have a familiarity.
Jackson from Ohio State. Jackson Smith.
yeah, Jackson Smith so yeah, I mean,
Wide receivers always take a year.
yeah, don't be concerned for Chad. Anybody that just heard his voice, by the way. Yeah, receivers can take a year, you're right, and there's no guarantee that that guy is going to be a polished NFL receiver. He was a very, very good, uh, almost elite college receiver, but with the second overall pick as his quarterback and a bunch of other first round picks floating around against teams that aren't as loaded with talent. So, uh, who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about Delvin Cook?
Oh my God, they keep the merry-go-round of this, eh? I don't even know. Like you always talk about teams that don't want to trade inside their conference, let alone their division, right?
Yeah.
But like, is there even a market for Delvin in the AFC? Like, I really don't think there even is anymore. Like, the teams that are run heavy have their running backs, or don't have the cap room, unfortunately, to take on Delvin Cook's contract, right? Where does he land? Well, a team like the Rams.
The Rams make sense.
I know they don't have a ton of cap and everything, but they also don't have any draft capital. This is kind of a solution to their problem. They've kind of run through running backs over the last few years. Delvin's been healthy. He kind of plays that type of passing game running back type style. Makes it fantastic. A three down running back. It doesn't. He can certainly block if need be. So that could be somebody that could fill a spot over there.
Yeah, for some reason, like everybody keeps pointing at Miami,
Yeah.
and obviously, like Miami's just like that hot team that people think is gonna, like Jalen Ramsey went there.
Yeah.
They've loaded up a little bit. The receiver room is good. Tua is apparently healthy, which I don't really know how you dictate somebody's brain health without cutting into their head, but uh, somehow,
He can
some
add
way,
2+2, Shane. So they've said he can play.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, he's a rollover away from whoever roll out whoever the next guy in Miami is, which
Yeah.
it's not Teddy Bridgewater anymore. So I don't even know who.
But like the money's got to run up. This was the same crap that we talked about with the Rams years ago, and coming up to this last year was
Yeah,
when's the money going to dry up, right? So like, how much money does Miami have? That being said, Miami knows their window now because you got a player like Tyreek Hill who's already put an expiration date on his career, so you
right.
know what's happening with him, right? So this is your window. This is it.
That's crazy to even do that, and like we'll obviously get to that, and
I posted it. Yeah, it's for Donald Cook.
all right, so the Delvin Cook odds are just here now, so let's have a quick peek. So Miami is not even the favorite, so about the favorite, so plus 650. I like that. Minnesota is clearly the favorite. Buffalo, Houston makes a lot of sense, but I think Houston's going to do some stuff next year. I don't think that they're this year team. I mean, they got Stroud, and if everything that we're reading, which I don't see why any coach would come out and badmouth their players right now, but Stroud is far more advanced than they even give him credit for. And
Everything looks great in OTA, Shane.
Yeah.
I have
No,
drank
that's not
every
true.
bit of Kool-Aid over the last few years when it came to players looking good in OTAs. I'm not doing it anymore.
I watched a bunch of throws by Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield, and they did not look great in OTAs.
Those
Those
Baker
were
Mayfield
bad.
throws were very bad.
Yeah, no. The replacement of Tom Brady is not going as smoothly as Bucks fans would want.
No.
And as a Buccaneer season ticket holder, I would much prefer that they completed more passes than that. But those are bad. No one's covering them. Kate Otten is like 6'10", and they're still out throwing him. Could be a tough one down there in Tampa.
That's the number one overall pick, right? You
It
can't
was.
you can't blame where you get drafted.
That's hey, look, good for him. I'm sure he was very happy about it. Ideally for him, he's not out of the league in 2 years. I mean, right now, I think he's really set up for failure. If I were a Bucks fan, and I think we have one that's floating around here, I think I'd be really rooting for Kyle Trask here because his ceiling at least has a little bit more there.
So here, coming back to Baker there, I kind of hit my wall as far as I used to say that it's, the organization has a history or track record of not drafting or developing quarterbacks and stuff. But like at some point, you just got to blame the player, right? Like I remember I was a not too good roommate when I was 23. Didn't clean my room up or do my dishes. But when I was 26, I
It's true. I
certainly.
lived with them.
When I was 26, I was doing my job. I was I learned some things, and that's just small tasks around the house. I just feel like over the course of a few years, and off seasons, and different coaches and different advisors and mentors, right? Like some sort of light bulb switches, and you see some sort of improvement.
Yeah.
But seeing that crap that we were just talking about in the OTAs, it just goes to show that like it wasn't really necessarily Cleveland's fault. Like
Yeah.
Baker was just not as good as anybody had thought they were. And that spread system he played in college just really benefited him, and he could not do what they asked him to do in the NFL under a run-heavy scheme, which really hides a lot of errors from the quarterback.
Yeah, and that was a really, really good Oklahoma team.
I hate to
And
say it.
yeah, it was.
Oh, I hate to say it, but it was.
They got some guys. I mean, there's a guy there that he's lining up to get paid here. CD Lamb absent from OTAs. That's not a big deal. But when he's
Well,
going
because
to
Dallas pays their players.
yeah, but he's gonna end up being absent from camp, I think, until they get something worked out here. So I mean, I don't know what the market for CD Lamb is.
Well, here's the thing: is if I'm a Dallas player and I'm a star, not just a regular depth player or anything, but if I'm a Dallas player and I'm a star, Jerry Jones' back is against the wall. He's only got.
Yeah.
So we talked about expiring contracts. We got one here in Jerry Jones. I mean, how many more years this guy got left? He was going to want to see a championship. We saw Al Davis do a lot of silly things in the tail part of his career to try and see that championship before what happened to him. So I just feel like there's going to be. You can push him around. You can say, this is my market. I'm going to take it because there's no alternative. There's no way you could take a step back from CeeDee Lamb or fill the depth with players in a trade with CeeDee Lamb in order to get what you want, right?
So we have a comment from CB Stu because he says because being an NFL quarterback is the exact same thing as doing the dishes.
It is. Nice. It may be.
Yeah, I love it.
I just mean it's a small connection of the dots, right? Like, again, when throwing a football, how many times are we going to go in the backyard throw a football together?
Yeah.
And how many times are you going to overthrow me and am I going to overthrow you? This was OTAs. It was a simple 5-yard, and then we saw this guy sky the ball 15 yards over top. It's embarrassing.
I love it.
Yeah.
Chad hates it. Chad is seething over there. Yeah. So the Cowboys are in a weird spot because you can go catch 22 here. Are you in a rush to sign before Jefferson signs? Because clearly, to me, Jefferson sets the market.
But there's no way CD gets outpaid. Like, there's no way that CD Lamb his agent goes to Jerry Jones and says, "Listen, this Jefferson got $150 million. We want 155." It's not happening. I know we just talked.
I see your point, and I don't think that if we were putting apples to apples, that doesn't make sense because obviously Jefferson is the far superior player. But it depends on how Dallas wants to play it. If Dallas went to CD right now and said, "Here's 5 years, $100 million, and 80 of it is guaranteed," long before whatever Jefferson deal is. And I think the Jefferson thing's going to get sour because Minnesota has not been that great at handling their players.
No, except for the quarterback.
And I think it's not even that. That's just the Kirk Cousins agent. I mean, cheers to that guy. I mean, that guy has gotten that man paid more than once.
Yeah. Everybody else as a star on that team has basically been chased off of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, even defensive players like Harrison Smith continues to he's playing well.
Yeah.
And they continue to attempt They continue to attempt to chase him away. I actually had somebody that's a Vikings fan. You guys know Mike Reno.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to get me to compare numbers between Harrison Smith and Troy Polamalu.
Come on.
What? Eyeball test? I agree with you. That's like, come on. Statistically, he's not wrong.
Come on.
Look,
they're totally different safeties. You have a safety, Harrison Smith, that was asked to stay in the middle of the field and smash whatever came over the middle, or any running backs that came through the hole.
Yeah.
Troy was 25 yards deep, hovering and coming up and smashing the running back at the same time.
CB Stu is saying that CD is going to come in around those Tyreek numbers. So Tyreek was getting 25 a year. Is that right?
I don't even know.
Does that sound right?
It was north of 20, but
yeah. I mean, that makes sense. But like, so and we'll get back into this safety thing because obviously we're going to have lots to talk about. Where does Jefferson fall then? I mean, if we're looking at, let's just say hypothetically, Tyreek got 21, so that means CD gets 22 and a half. Where does Justin Jefferson sign?
He's fucking Randy Moss. He gets whatever he wants. I mean, realistically, like if we're going to be real about it, he's the best wide receiver prospect that came out of college over the last few years.
Yeah,
Not the last few years. For best prospect, he's like the second best prospect, but he's blossomed and arguably the
way
best.
better.
He's best wide receiver in the NFL. I feel like I
Yeah.
really don't think there's when it comes down to top to bottom route running, going deep, uh, playing for the ball, getting touchdowns, which is incredibly important because Julio Jones will get you 1,600 yards when he's playing for Atlanta, but get 3 touchdowns in the year. It doesn't help your team if you're only getting 3 points on the board, right?
Right. I mean, everyone looked at Jefferson and thought, okay, he's got another guy kind of eating up the ball, so some of the pressure was off of him. That was his rookie year. Thielen still had a little bit of like air in the tires. But if you think back to that trade, Stephon Diggs gets traded to the Bills for that first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
That first round pick turns into Justin Jefferson. I think the Vikings won that trade.
They were no fan was angry after week 5 of that
Yeah.
kid's rookie season.
I mean, they clearly won that trade. So
Yeah.
now that you've won that trade, how do you parlay that into like an overall win for the front office too? You're right. $27.5 million. Is that a lot for a receiver?
Not for him. I feel there's certain players that kind of meet that expectation, meet that payday, right?
And if you're getting rid of Dalvin Cook, you clearly are getting rid of that money for something. And there's going to be a bunch of guys that don't make money.
But at the same time, like let's be real. I mean, tell your boy Mike Rano that like they're in for some dark years, right? Like they're not. It's not going to be nice over Minnesota for very long. I feel like this may be their last decent season, and then things are going to fall right apart. Can you tell me a player on defense right now besides Harrison Smith? Can't name it. Can you tell me a player on offense besides Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins?
Something Osborne.
KJ Osborne, yeah.
But no.
Basically, they have nobody, no names, and we are guys that watch football a lot, and we know a lot of these teams, and you can't name players on that squad, especially on defense, and that's really weird.
Yeah,
you can't name anybody.
They got Madison, who will obviously step in at running back. He's kind of been their backup there for the last 4 years. I'm sure that he'll step in fairly seamlessly for Cook, but at any time you have $45 million invested in your quarterback and a potential of 25 to 27 million invested into one receiver, yeah, your team's gonna suck unless you smash the draft.
Yeah,
because there's no money anywhere else. You're investing whatever that is, about $70 million roughly of your salary cap of the 225 that they get into that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's unacceptable. They probably, I don't know. This is maybe Kirk Cousins' last year with them then.
Well,
And you could structure a deal to make it work. I think that makes sense.
And then he just starts going out like Chad Pennington and just starts chasing things everywhere he go, like for a ring. Give me 1 year, 10 million here, 1 million, 15 million here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that guy. He will get paid no matter where he goes.
Yeah.
He'll just be the quarterback. He'll be like good luck Chuck. Every time he signs with a team in the offseason, they get the first overall pick, draft a quarterback, brings him in, out, see you later. I think that would be a fantastic way to go. But we got to get in this Tom Brady thing a little bit. And maybe this will be just like a shout out to Chad, because I know Chad's a big Brady guy. He would love to be on here talking about this. Hot takes and pancakes, obviously, from our guy over at the Hot Sauce Co. Is Tom Brady going to be the next Jackie Moon? Will he be an owner and a player?
No, it's over. And realistically, what I don't care that Devontae Adams is there. We just talked about a team in Minnesota, and we said, who do they have? Who does Las Vegas have? I know that suddenly when you get Tom Brady, your team is going to go up a level. We're talking about Tom Brady, who hasn't done anything off season. He's probably not in football shape.
Yeah.
So he takes the year off and goes back next year to do it. Like, I just don't see that works. This team is teetering on being very bad in a very strong AFC West. So I just don't think it benefits him. Right now, how will you be the guy that directs the Las Vegas, I keep calling them Oakland Raiders, but directs the Raiders back to the glory days, right? They just need somebody to right the ship and tell Davis what to do a little bit too, right?
Well, this Jimmy G guy seems like he was having a little bit of surgery. I don't know if I don't really know where that's going to land. I'm sure he's fine if if he passed the physical. Obviously, that's the only way you're going to get on the squad there. But there has been some weird trade rumors floating around in Las Vegas there. One of them being that they're incredibly interested in Trey Lance.
Yeah. and anybody can be interested in Trey Lance. I think.
How mad would you be if you're Jimmy G though?
Oh yeah, Jimmy comes over.
He
Yeah,
got you twice.
yeah. But I think that the Trey Lance story is just the media that's in an off season that's been that's a little bit boring for a few weeks. They just have to come back to an old story, right? Like I really don't think there's any smoke to that fire. They've been, even though Brock Purdy pretty much got named the starter again today,
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
got a cheap secondary option at quarterback for a team that can't keep 4 quarterbacks through a year.
Well, and the thing is, like, the NFL has just finally granted this new rule,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
fantastic rule, I
Yep.
think. So it's going to be far more important. And I guess for anybody that doesn't know, the new rule that's been made is you're allowed to dress a third quarterback that doesn't count against your active players, and they can only go in if the first two guys get hurt. So that is going to eliminate the bullshit of like a receiver going in and not completing a pass, or what kind of happened to the 49ers down the stretch there. They're using a lot of guys. It was a bit of a circus. Too bad that for their sake it had to go down like that, but smart move to make that happen. Um, I agree with you. I don't see Lance getting moved. And I think that this is the same scenario that maybe Jordan Love was in last year, the year before. You really, even though Brock Purdy outperformed everyone's expectations, which was zero, um, you really don't know what you have.
What you have now. You know what you had, but after the
Well,
injury, you don't know what you have now, really.
you knew what you had when he didn't know what he didn't know,
Yeah.
and now that he's going to know a little bit more, is he still as good as you? Because like Baker Mayfield, arguably his best game in his career was that game on Thursday Night Football, right?
Yep.
Where they came back out of nowhere and just miraculously won the game, and that's because he didn't know the offense and he was just dicking around and he was doing like he didn't overthink it. It was just right there for your grasp. That's kind of what Purdy did all year, and it's not to discount what he did, but you still haven't proven anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to give up on the third overall pick that you traded up for to just do that yet. I'm sure if they could have found an economical solution, they would have kept Jimmy G too and
Yeah.
just rolled into camp that way.
Well, you can't trade Lance either. The second, because again, you mentioned they're trading up for him. You're just looking like an idiot. I don't care how
Yeah.
successful you've been in San Francisco. People are going to say, "Well, if you had them picks, how much more successful would you have been?" Right?
Right. Sorry, I had a text come through there. All right. I mean, we're past June 1st now. Obviously, the June 1st salary cap has kind of come and gone. So, the players, the last minute players are going to get cut. Some of the roster space that's been taken up. It's finally been outed that Brady wasn't actually taking a pay cut, that they were just pushing his money down the road. And that's why he counts for $55 million against the Buccaneers cap this year and next. So,
That's fun.
yeah, exactly. But like, what a team guy. He took pay cuts, right? Like, that's the narrative anyway. What is? I can't talk, so he can't even defend himself. So, what is the trade that's out there that you could still see happening that just I don't know that's going to affect, let's say, affect the NFC or AFC championship game?
Okay. Quinn Williams. I don't see that man sticking around in New York.
Okay.
I think that they've got a 2 to 3 year plan, and they don't necessarily need Quinn Williams, who's amazing. I think he's on the same level Aaron Donald, Jeffrey Simmons, Sue when Sue was in his prime, right? These are great players, but I don't think they need them. They
Yeah.
have enough defense around the team. They've put obviously enough into the wide receiver core there, and then getting Aaron Rodgers. So I could see him getting dished out. And where does he get sent? Well, it's got to be somebody in the NFC, somebody with money.
Send him to the Giants.
Yeah,
A nice quick move across the hall.
yeah. Carolina makes a lot of sense. I could see him landing there. They got money. They got a defense that they can build around with Brian Burns still being there, right? Got some good corners. Their offense is obviously going to take a step forward here, hopefully. So that could make a lot of sense. But regardless of where he maybe lands, I think Quinn Williams is the most likely candidate to be gone.
All right, I got one.
He's going to hit me with something that's going to hurt, I feel.
No, not yet. This is a little bit of like hometown homerism, but I think that J.J. Watt is going to get traded. I know he's retired. I think he's going to get traded to the Steelers to play the second half of the year on the Steelers line beside his brother.
Just because of his tweet. Would he
What?
say he wanted to play for Tomlin?
Because he's been hanging out at the facility.
Well, yeah, because his brothers are there.
His brother,
Was Derek?
I think he's just floating around in the wind. They didn't re-sign him. They
Oh.
actually picked up a couple other guys, but it makes sense. It makes sense that he would want to play with his brothers, like you're saying. I mean, his other brother might just end up on the practice squad. That would be like it's such a Pittsburgh Steeler move that it hurts to even like think about it. It's going to happen. Uh, call it a fifth or a sixth round pick, and they'll absorb all that money on the cap.
All right. So, talking about Derek Watt and the fullback, did you see what Andy Reid said about the fullback position in the NFL?
No.
He said that the NFL has phased out the fullback position. Essentially, they're not going to have one this year. And there was a bunch of hoopla about that. But my kind of shot back here is, when has Andy Reid ever taken advantage of a fullback? Like, his offense has never had one. I feel like if
No.
it did, it was like an H back, if anything, and it never had a true fullback. I feel maybe I'm completely wrong with that, but I don't think as a run heavy team, you guys have been a pass heavy too, but run heavy, historically, and as what my team is, I feel that the fullback position or the H back is still prevalent in a lot of teams. It's just there's certain ones that aren't.
That's what it is. I think it's more of the H back. Like
Yeah,
nobody is looking for that guy with the neck roll anymore because that's like
Lorenzo Neals
the divisive part of football. Nobody wants somebody to get laid out by the guy that you know is literally only there to lay him
to
out.
lay him out.
You know,
Yeah,
like the enforcer is gone from hockey, and it's probably safe to say that like the traditional fullback is gone from football.
yeah.
The guys that can play tight end and fullback become halfback, and they're more of a pass catching like weird threat, like a Kyle Juszczyk or, um, you know, I'm gonna say Connor Haywood, who most people wouldn't know who that is, but he made a couple big plays for the Steelers. I don't know who your halfback or fullback is.
Well,
So.
we haven't had a fullback for a little bit now. We've been running with Jeff Swain.
Yeah,
Because we've been injured so much, we can't carry a fullback.
I um I have changed my stance on thinking that Derrick Henry is going to get traded before the season starts. But I think he's going to get traded before the trade deadline.
This asshole. There,
Yeah,
so this was the one that was in your back pocket. It's
yeah.
not yet. All right.
So I got tickets for the Steelers and Titans on week 14, and I predict that Derrick Henry won't play in that game, and it will not be injury related. I think that he'll be on a different team.
All right.
What team that is? I don't know. I mean, we kind of named a few of them. I think that he gets flipped out of the conference for sure. So if you're looking at a team like the Rams, I think Seattle's already pretty loaded up at running back. But maybe even bring him into Carolina and really start to load down. And this is gonna sound fucked up, but I actually had a dream that he's playing for the Titans, or sorry, the Texans, and
The Texans.
yeah,
Is it because they're going to be wearing the Texans colors this year? Is that why?
maybe. And you know what? Like I know that there's a 0% chance that Tennessee trades him to Houston, but that's what I pictured. And I don't know, call it Madden, call it whatever you want. That's kind of that's what I was seeing.
The guy has for a while, him and Kevin Byard, I mentioned this on that show before, is that they want to be one team players their entire career. So
Yeah.
I hope, regardless of what his longevity is, I hope that I said that Tennessee will never give a second contract to a running back again, but this will be his third. So I feel I'm hoping for it still.
Yeah, and like New England would also be another one that makes sense. You want to make a shift to a little bit of ice here, or do you?
Yeah, we can do that.
Before we do, anytime you do traveling, you go to Expedia or Google Travel. But anytime you do betting, you should be heading over to our friends at Betstamp. App is free to download. Hit my reference code GF2. It'll find you the best value on every single pick, every single prop. It'll tell you which sports books are going to make you a little bit more money. Obviously, you're already locked in. If you're like me, you're locked in on your decision, and it's impossible to change your mind. But you can always head over there. They will find the best odds for you, make you the most money. Game 2 tonight. After watching game 1, it was kind of a shell of a Florida team. Now, I'm going to say that maybe that's a little bit of rust for being off. I know the NHL set up their schedule to be. I mean, they set it up to be starting on a Saturday, whatever. Liam needs a beer. Go ahead.
This is the NHL. I've talked about this before with you guys. This is the NHL just shooting themselves in the foot again. They have no idea how to market their friggin' sport at all. A week off when you have two teams, one's from a desert, one's from the beach that are playing for a Stanley Cup. You have a team. I'm not trying to give favors to a team like Florida, but you have a team that's played playoff hockey for 45 days, 50 days because you had the regular season they had to play in order to get in.
Yeah.
And suddenly, guess what? You're not playing for 8 days or 9 days.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's just so stupid. I have no idea why they lined it up to be on a Saturday. Who cares? You're competing with bowling on Saturday and probably still losing in 30 of the states that are playing you anyway. Like, they, again, just have no idea how to market. They should have never taken time off with a slow start. I really hope that Florida's able to take it to them. I really like Vegas. I just something about this Florida team. They deserve it. I want Vegas to be better, to have this as a better series for us to have a good Stanley Cup to watch.
Yeah.
But Florida has just, like I said, played hard for 50 days. They deserve to win the cup at this point.
You know, they got hot at the right time. Like, they actually kind of remind me of like a March Madness team.
Okay.
And like a March Madness team that gets hot during the conference tournament. And then, yeah, 'cause it came down to the final game if they were going to qualify for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right? And they butt-fucked the Penguins, who I have a Penguins theory for you, too.
Oh, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, a little Kyle Dubas action.
But they took out the President's Cup, like a historic team in Boston, right? And then they took out the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
And that was another team you talk about historic, 5-on-5 historic team. And defensively, they're one of the top 3 statistical categorized teams in all of hockey over the last 15 years. And then they shut them down too. It didn't matter. So this team just deserves to win it. So I hope that they do pull it out.
Look,
I want to see the Rats.
Problem is the like Vegas doesn't really make a lot of mistakes. And like that's such a generic comment, but if you watch the game tonight, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. They don't take stupid penalties. They draw a lot of dumb penalties. They score on the power play. They move the puck around.
You know what you just described there? The Canadian hockey game. And I think that's why they're doing so well, right?
Yeah. And
we won that one too, Shane. You just didn't know that, right?
Overall,
Yeah.
their team is pretty deep. They got a lot of guys, and I'm not going to be the guy to say I watched every single Golden Knights game during the regular season. I might have watched 2, and I think both of them when they were playing the Penguins. So, not realizing the depth that they had and not realizing what they could do, walking into the playoffs here, I was surprised. I thought that they were going to really struggle against Dallas. Not at all. They rinsed Dallas. I think that the Panthers might be the team of destiny. They're the Cinderella story. I don't think there's any way that they win.
Oh, that's a shame. You're putting that out there in the universe, are you?
And you know, I think that they'll win at least one game. So I mean, if I had to call it right now, and I mean, go check your Betstamp odds right now. Call it Vegas in 5.
Oof.
Yeah, I think Vegas is going to win tonight. I do think Matthew Tkachuk's going to score, and I think that both teams are going to be able to pot the puck. But yeah.
What do you think that save? What a save to have in Stanley Cup final, eh?
But there was a lot of great things that happened out of it, and the problem is because of exactly what you were saying, they don't know how to market themselves. The news cycle on the championship was so short, and the NBA game 2 was last night. I don't think anybody's watched a highlight from game 1 since.
No, and I think that there's been more news that dropped about, and more hype that dropped out of Montreal today with the Cole Caulfield signing than there was any of the hype that led up to the Stanley Cup final. And they had a couple of good hype videos, but like, hey, your 2-minute videos aren't going to make up for 7 days of friggin' silence. Just doesn't make sense. At least the Super Bowl, when they're doing it and they're doing their week leading up to it, there's activities every day. There's interviews every day. Like, I understand that hockey's a little different. They practice a little more thoroughly, it seems to me anyway. But like, you got to set some time aside in order to have a conversation or two, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to watch tonight's game. I've also been really enjoying a little bit of base, and the Blue Jays have gotten hot over the last 9 here. So
thank God, because prior to that, they were pretty crap.
So you know what? They've gone on these like weird flows, and like we are in a tough division. You're a Red Sox fan, for anybody that doesn't know. Jays. So if the Jays were in the AL Central, they'd be leading by 3 games.
Yep.
But because they're in the AL East, they are in 4th place.
Yeah.
And they have 3 games out of a wild card. Yeah, which is absurd.
Ricky was mentioning that a couple of weeks ago, is how like 4 of our 5 teams were either 500 or just below, but yet we would have been better than any other team.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, there's a lot of good American League teams, and it's still way too early to even like dig into it. But Texas has done a tremendous job rebuilding and getting free agents to come play for them. I think the Astros are kind of a shell. And I don't believe in the Rays, so I think that there's still a lot of hope for whether you're cheering for the Blue Jays or the Red Sox or the Yankees or dark horse that I gave you guys last year. Another dark. I mean, the Minnesota Twins are a good team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they can play in the NL is not very strong, right?
Well, Minnesota's in the AL.
Oh,
They're just in the Central. They used to, yeah. So you're partially right.
Now,
Uh,
what I want to ask you about though is how fat you talk about a shell, Fernando Tatis, shell of himself or what? Like the guy since he came back or since his suspension, he can't do anything right.
yeah, I mean he.
And the team in general is just garbage right now too for all that money they've spent.
That's the
right?
thing. Like they just don't have any chemistry. Like payroll with no chemistry will get you nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think Bogart's going there. I guess to summarize what I'm saying, when you have everybody on your team that's considered a superstar, nobody on your team feels the pressure to perform. Because you just think like, oh shit, I struck out, the next guy will get me. But when every single one of those guys is getting out, you're in tough shape. Absolutely.
Not like Bryce Harper. When every time he was up to the plate, it was up to him to do something, right?
Right, exactly. So I mean, the Phillies surprised us last year. Atlanta kind of surprised people the year before. Well, some people, not me, but um, humbly, I should say. Uh, yeah, I don't know what San Diego needs to do. I mean, they're going to bring in some. They're not going to go off into the night, right? So they're going to bring some guys into the trade deadline. Most
Are
likely,
they?
most likely pitching. Like it'll be pitching that whoever's selling pitching is what they'll go get. Um, Outside of that, yeah, I think that the watch out for the Blue Jays because they haven't played their best. Watch out for a Tampa Bay regression because they have way outkicked their coverage.
Well, I mean, I talked about it with Ricky. It was like when the Devils beginning of the season, people were like making fun of them getting all those wins, and there was, oh, we'll see you in October, see you in November. Yeah, they got their wins when it mattered. Like the amount of wins they chalked together.
They still count, yeah. They still
For the
count.
first 2.5 months here, 3 months, that they're going to be able to carry that, and I feel it's going to be what helps them come playoff time for sure. But confidence is a
Yeah,
hell of a lot in baseball, and it
yeah.
seems that they got it right now.
That's it. And you know what? While we're on the diamond, why don't we just talk about the majors for a second? I mean, we're actually gonna be out there on Friday.
Yeah,
Boys are gonna be doing a
first
little.
game of the season for me.
Yeah, well, I think for all of us,
All right.
to get out there and watch. They've had a few games on the road, but it seems like they're starting to play some good ball. We're gonna have, I don't know, maybe 30 people. So if you're interested, you can still slide into the DMs and see what Chad's got for you. I think he's got a couple tickets left.
The
So
oldest baseball diamond in the world, right?
yeah,
And from what we've been told, the prettiest batter's box view. So I like that. That's cool.
yeah. I mean, it's a cool diamond to play at. It's a cool atmosphere to be at. So if you've got nothing going on Friday night, whether you're coming with us or you're going by yourself, be down at Labatt Park. We'll be there.
Weren't you just a little peewee playing there? I think you told me. There were some tournaments there for you?
I played there until I was into my 20s.
There you go.
But I guess I was smaller
But
then.
that
That's what you mean.
was that you sneaking in to play with the guys or what?
Yeah, no, it's a cool park to be at. It's a cool backdrop. I think it's gonna be an awesome atmosphere. And
Mhm.
like I said, if you got nothing going on Friday night, hit us up because we're gonna be down there.
And the weather's been great around here too. So
Yeah, cool. That's all. I think we're gonna wrap it right there. That's episode 150 in the bag.
okay, I want to ask you though. I haven't had a chance to ask you yet.
Please, we're in overtime now.
Who is winning the championship in the NBA? Who are you cheering for? Who do you want to win? Who do you think's going to win?
You know what? I didn't know a whole lot about Djokovic or
Jokic?
or
The Joka?
whatever the fuck his name. I know he doesn't play tennis, but
Yeah.
but watching him play has been incredible. The guy's awesome.
You know what's funny is that he doesn't even like basketball's not even his first thing. Like he spends more time with his family and like hanging out with his daughter and stuff than he does the basketball practice.
He's just a huge white that is incredible.
Have you seen his picture when he was a kid, Shane?
You can't say that?
He was like
No.
when he was a kid, he was like super kind of short and like very big, and suddenly now he's not. He's just this
Yeah.
good basketball player.
Yeah, you know what?
19 was he at 20 assists the other day? I think it was. He finished with or 15 anyway.
The guy's unreal.
Yeah,
And he finds a way to get to the basket. So
and Murray.
naturally, I'm just gonna say Denver. I was surprised to see that they blew the game last night and that Murray didn't hit that three, but
Yeah.
overall, at least they're not going to sweep because I did think after game one that it was going to be just an absolute beatdown.
Jimmy George is never going to get swept.
Never know.
All right.
I think it's Butler, but
You don't know that, do you?
No.
The whole the rumor that people think that Jimmy is Jordan's son. Yeah,
interesting.
that's why they call him Jimmy Jordan. It's an actual nickname.
Hmm. That sounds like something we should research offline. I don't know if we'll let us talk about that on here. Yeah. Stay tuned for now. I guess we're not next week. 2 weeks from now. Like I said, if you got nothing going on Friday, hit us up. We're going to be down at the Majors game. If you got tickets already, come say hi. We're going to be there enjoying some alcoholic beverages and a little bit of sunshine.
Should I bring a glove? Try to catch a foul ball?
I think so.
No, you cannot. You're a man.
I think so.
The frog over here is telling me I can't bring a glove, so I won't bring a glove.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is saying no. But yeah, make sure you're checking out the socials. We'll have lots of links going on. And like I said, we got a lot of things going on this summer, and we're going to have a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about that we're just not ready to talk about yet. But we will see you